Hi YouTube, and welcome to my public diary. Today I'm going to be talking about the IUD experience that I've had over the past 6 years and the removal of it 10 days post. So I'm going to start out with my period as a youngin'. When I was a teenager, I had very extreme cramps, very heavy bleeding, and it lasted about 8 days. So 8 days a month I would suffer. Ugh. Okay. Let me break it down for y'all to explain how shitty of a time I had with this period situation. I remember my PE teacher, Miss Soule, she was like, oh yeah, if you just run, it'll go away. And I ran and I was very athletic and the pain never stopped. In fact, it worsened the more that I was exercising. So that was pretty shitty advice, but maybe she didn't have such weird cramps or whatever I was going through. One time I had gotten off the school bus and I was walking to my house and I vomited because the pain was so bad. Another time I was crying in front of Michael's, the Arts and Crafts Center, and nobody asked me if I was okay. And eventually I had gotten a ride from my grandparents to come back home. And I had like this mini seizure. One time I had such bad cramps that I was banging my head on the wall, against the wall, just to get rid of the pain or at least distract it. And it really disturbed my mom. She took me to the ER where, the doctor said that my uterus was positioned the right way and he wasn't quite sure why I was having such a hard time with cramping. And he basically said, now listen, if you take your pain pills right before your real cramps are gonna start, then you shouldn't have such a bad time with it. Well, the thing is that when I was that age, the cramps were so bad that the pain pills wouldn't help, even with the warning cramps. Now, as women, you know you get warning cramps. They're like little twinges or whatever in the uterus, and then the real cramps start. But the beginning cramps were so bad that the pain meds didn't work for me, so I was kind of out of options. And then I became sexually active around college time. I have a partner, and I still have him. We've been together for about 6 years, 6 or 7 now. But I got the IUD because I had a pregnancy scare. No, I wasn't pregnant. I started to smoke cigarettes, and the cigarettes had irregulated my period, and I didn't know that if you smoke, that will happen. Well, anyways, yeah, it was like 2 weeks late. So that had scared me enough to want to try out this IUD. The reason that I wanted the IUD was because I knew that it was basically 100% proactive against getting pregnant, and so that's what I went for. The problem is that I hadn't had any children, or I haven't been pregnant yet, so they had to pierce a hole in me. They had to pierce it up there, which hurt like hell, but it was just it was only for a second, you know. I didn't feel it afterwards. Yes, my uterus was cramping a little bit. I bled for 30 days afterwards, and then, hold on, I bled for 30 days afterwards, 30 days, and then my period started to regulate again, and 2 years after that, my period had completely stopped. After that, it was like spotting maybe once or twice a year, so it was very fantastic. I hardly had any cramps. It was a dream come true. The only problem was I had built up this anxiety inside because I had seen all of these commercials about, oh, your implant may become dislodged and implant itself somewhere along the uterus, or it may travel outside of the uterus, which didn't make any sense to me because I would think that that would cause internal bleeding. And anyway, maybe that has happened for someone, and that is so freaking terrible. It really is. I'm so sorry, but those commercials are what really stopped me from getting my IUD checked. I wanted to pretend like my IUD didn't exist afterwards, because it was just like such a terrifying thought. I didn't have health insurance at the time, so you know, I didn't want to deal with any of it. And I am so grateful, and I am so amazed that when it was time for the IUD to come out, everything was fine. She basically told me, you know, open your legs, and I was so nervous. The whole time that I had the IUD, I began to get anxiety, and there were a lot of outside things that were, you know, but being hormonal, I have to admit, may have its downsides as far as being super emotional over little things, and not being 100% yourself all the time, but who really is when it comes to having periods. It's kind of like having one long period or whatever, I don't know. The progesterone in the Mirena IUD made sure that I wouldn't get pregnant, but I also have to say that I was a bit hormonal at the time. So I learned to get along with my hormonal self. Oh, I backtracked a little bit. So I wanted to talk about the days leading up to getting it removed. I was very scared because, number one, I hadn't gotten it checked, like, at all. And number two, I had these fears that something would go wrong. Number three, I didn't have health insurance. And 4, 5, and 6. So I was looking up on YouTube about the Mirena removal. You know, I was looking at some good stories, some bad stories, and just trying to imagine what it would be like for me. It turned out all right. You know, I'm still here. Honestly, I thought I was gonna die the night before. I really had sent out a few texts, you know, saying, pray for your girl, or like, wish me luck, you know, because I really didn't think that I was gonna make it for some reason. I'm not that lucky of a person, and I just didn't think that, you know. Anyway, that's really besides the point. If we're gonna talk facts here, I'm going to say that it didn't hurt at all, them taking the Mirena IUD out. It was very tiny, way tinier than I had imagined. It was about this big, and she had opened my legs, and I had put my heels in the saddles, but my knees kept clenching in on her, and it was something that I couldn't help. So I had to hold my knees apart so she could look at what's going on down there. And she cranked open that thing. She put the light down there, and within seconds she was like, okay, I'm gonna ask you to sneeze. And you know, I was so nervous and so pathetic and so blinded by my fears that I just didn't want to go through with it, and I was begging her, please just let me go, let me go. But she didn't. She said, you know what, you need to get it out now, it's time. I was gonna get it out last year, but they said, oh no, they just came out with this new study that says you can keep it in for another year. And so I did. But it was time for the removal, and she told me to cough real hard, and so I did. And it didn't hurt. I screamed, but it wasn't because it hurt. I screamed because I was relieved that it was finally over with, and then I didn't have to deal with that anymore. So yeah, As far as the after effects of having the Mirena out, so far I haven't been emotional once. I haven't been angry once. I haven't been depressed at all. I think that I had went through the postpartum depression like maybe last year. I was very, very depressed for a very long time. And, you know, after getting it removed, I don't feel any type of sadness or, you know, loss, you know. I think that maybe for some people, the, I was gonna say chemicals. I think for some people, maybe the progesterone worn out a little bit faster than for it to be considered good enough for another year. So it had already expired, and then maybe I was going through some trials and tribulations at that time and throwing a little bit of the postpartum or whatever. But after she had took it out, I had never been more happy in my life. I have been able to laugh like I haven't laughed in so fucking long. My husband makes me laugh till there's cries, little tears. So yeah, about the Mirena. Do I recommend it for everyone? No, I don't. And I'll tell you why. I don't recommend it for somebody who may have an anxiety disorder, who may be a worrywart, who is positively sure that they want children later on in their life. I do recommend it for people who are responsible and have health insurance and a good paying job, you know, to pay for the health insurance, the good health insurance, just in case anything might happen, you know. But like I was saying, I recommend it for people who know in their hearts they do not want children, ever, ever, ever. And I mean this as a person who has been in a relationship for a long time and knows in their heart that they do not like children and don't want children at all. Okay, that's for them, for sure, 100%. And because there is that 1% chance that you could get pregnant, and there's a 1% or maybe higher chance that maybe something bad might happen. But I think that's like in the 1 percentiles. And I'm telling you, I don't have the greatest luck. So I really believed that there was going to be something wrong. But there wasn't. So maybe that speaks out to somebody who was skeptical like me the day before watching YouTube videos trying to figure out if they're going to survive. If you're that person, probably not take it and go a different route. I don't know. Currently right now, I am on no birth control at all, and I'm just loving the way my body is handling things. By the way, if you want to learn about the effects of the removal after the past 10 days, I will also tell you that for the first day, I didn't bleed at all. At all. I spotted once or twice, 1 or 2 spots on my underwear after the removal. It didn't bleed at all for that day, nor the day after. Didn't bleed at all. Was having a wonderful, dry-free, wonderful day. And then came the other day, the next day. Ooh, I bled like a mofo. I bled like I was back in my teenage years. I couldn't believe how immediately my body said, oh, okay, right, get back to the things we were doing. And, I mean, I had irregular blood clots. We're all ladies here, and I'm just going to give it to you straight. I had, like, irregular blood clots, and they just kind of, like, slid right out of me, you know? And, it was weird because I hadn't seen something like that for so long, but in my head I'm imagining that the coagulation in the womb after not having bled for so long, I think that it was just trying to come out in clumps. It didn't hurt at all. I had no cramping yet, and so I'm really thankful for that too. Hopefully my body learned a few tricks and decided it wasn't gonna give me any more bullshit about cramps. Okay, so I want to say that it was absolutely worth it in the sense of not having cramps and not having to worry about going to the clinic twice a week, or however you guys do, twice a month. I have to do some research later on to figure out exactly where I'm going to go next, because I still don't want to get pregnant just yet. But as for now, I want to say that it was a really helpful device, and I haven't had any children yet, so it's done what it was supposed to do. Oh, by the way, after the 9th day, yeah, the bleeding stopped. So I'm no longer bleeding, and I feel like a normal person. I'm not hormonal. I'm not worried about if something wrong is happening down there. I'm not worried about any of it. So I have to say, as a person who has never had birth control besides condoms before getting the IUD Mirena, I would rate the Mirena a 4 or a 3.5 or a 3.75. And the only reason I'm giving it a couple stars off is because I was scared the whole time something bad might happen, and I also got anxiety from it. But there are outside sources, environmental sources, that tend to mix in with the IUD Mirena. It has really nothing to do with the IUD Mirena, but the way that I reacted to it. And I want to say that if you're not a worrywart and you know what you're doing, maybe it's good for you. But if you're a worrywart and you're scared all the time, don't do it. Maybe do something a little less intrusive and invasive, and yeah. So I hope that maybe this has helped you figure out what you want to do, what you gonna do, or how it will feel when you get it out. It's not gonna hurt. Like, I'm telling you, as a person who had the worst cramps in the freaking world, that when they took that thing out and I coughed hard and I meant it, I had felt no pain. I felt it come out is what I felt, but I didn't feel any pain. The only pain that I had felt was the worry and the fear that I had giving up to that point. So there you have it. If you're scared, if you have to get the Mirena IUD out tomorrow, you're gonna live. You will survive. It's not the end of your life. It's not. You will come to see that you had made a really good decision, even though it didn't feel like it at the time. So thank you for listening to about 18 minutes of me rambling about my feelings and my experiences with the IUD. Hopefully this has helped you out. And if it has, maybe give this video a like. I don't know if I want to start a YouTube career, but you know, you never know. Okay, thank you for listening. Honestly, I hope this has helped you. And have a good rest of the day or night, or good rest of whatever. Okay, love you, bye.